A good horror game is something special. It is not able just to challenge us with its gameplay or tell a good story, but to scare us, to haunt our dreams and idle thoughts, even to make us question our own perceptions of reality. In this podcast, we meet the developers of both existing popular horror titles and hotly anticipated upcoming games to discuss how they do it, what inspires them, and all things spooky and unnerving. Welcome to Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards.
Hello and welcome to Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards. As ever, you have myself, Phil, and Will here as your hosts, and today we are joined by Antonio, who is the mind behind Pneumata, which is an upcoming survival horror, psychological horror game, which is definitely worth checking out and looking for. So, hi, Antonio. Pleasure to be speaking to you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and just talk to you guys about the project, and we can get into anything that you want to, really.
Cool,
Perfect.
absolutely. Um, well, I think just to kind of, if we want to start off, do you want to kind of give for anyone who might not be familiar a bit of an overview of what to expect in the game and what it's all about?
Yeah, so the game is like super inspired by some of my favorite games in the genre. So that's Outlast, Resident Evil, and Condemned. So these were kind of like my core like pillars of inspiration. And so I kind of wanted to put that into a game where you had to like really like survive, and there was gritty combat kind of like similar to like Condemned, and there were moments where maybe you were weaponless and you had to survive just like Outlast, and you kind of had to like sneak around and hide a little bit, and then have that really like cool story elements similar to Resident Evil, where you have like these voice acting and you know um, all these different like cutscenes and things like that happening. So I wanted to really blend that into my pretty much my star project right now. So putting everything into Numata. And the game specifically, you play as a detective, well, private investigator. And so you kind of start hearing things about this town, and you decide to go and investigate. And you unfortunately get sucked into all the wacky, evil stuff happening there.
Cool. Quite an interesting mix of games as well. You kind of talking about for your inspiration there. I mean, particularly kind of that contrast between Outlast, which is obviously famously no combat, all running away and hiding, versus like Condemned and that more physical side of things. So where did that come from? Like in terms of like the idea of like pushing those two things together?
It just really came down to, I mean, I love Outlast and I loved playing it, and I've played it multiple times. But there was always just so many moments where I was just, screaming at the screen saying like, pick up this thing and pick up this weapon and just like, put some effort in, like,
Yeah.
um, so that kind of just inspired me to maybe um, fuse that into a survival horror that has combat, just because I do enjoy like brutal and like gritty combat, and I think it's just so fun to like pick up a weapon and start bashing people with it in a video game. And so combining that with Outlast was kind of like a design challenge also. And so that kind of just fits into the game with the different like beats. So there's gonna have like different flows, and you may have your weapon stripped from you at some point.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah. It's always best in a horror game when you've literally got nothing to defend yourself with, and then you've got to use your
Yeah.
mind and try and figure it all out. No, it's definitely the more of the scary moments. So talking about that, and obviously many inspirations for the game. Like, what do you believe makes a good horror game?
Um, I think probably the story and how the story is conveyed throughout the game is probably what
Mm.
makes a good horror game. Um, I think mechanics or like the different like gameplay features that kind of just keeps you going and like entertained while you're enjoying the story. So it's kind of like I do think like the story is probably the most like important part for sure.
That's cool.
Yeah, something to kind of, because you could have a game with lots of, I don't know, jump scares and stuff, but if there was nothing attached to it and no reason for it, it'd just be, I
Yeah,
don't know,
you're
maybe
just being
psychological
bored.
torture instead of a
Yeah,
horror story.
yeah, definitely.
um, so have you always been kind of a horror fanatic then, as far as that goes, and like into horror, or is that something like what brought you into?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed horror games. I'm kind of a scaredy cat myself, so I always played with my brother, or just eventually I just had to start just watching like YouTube and Let's Play. So I was always just watching like every horror game, every indie game, and I would pick up a lot of the games too. You know, I can't lie and say that I wasn't also inspired by the PT demo on PS4.
Mm.
So was that PS3?
PS3, that was, yeah, yeah, yeah. But no, that
Oh
was.
wow, that was a long time ago.
No, we're very old now, I feel. Um, yeah, so obviously, with being a fan of horror games, is it also you're also a fan of like horror TV or film, or have you got any favorites there?
Definitely for movies, my favorite genre for sure. I just watch every horror movie. So I'm super into horror, really. But
Mm.
I'm kind of a scaredy cat still when it comes to playing games. So I just wanted to make a horror game and kind of just I just thought it'd be really fun and kind of just to make a horror game. I just love it so much anyway. So I thought it'd be a perfect fit.
So it's horror games scarier than horror films, do you reckon?
Oh yeah, yeah, 100%. Because then in the game I have to make decisions.
True,
And in movies, you're just sitting back and
exactly.
telling, you know, watching them do their thing. So
Yeah.
for sure.
Cool. So you mentioned obviously you play as a private detective, and I know it talks about on the Steam page kind of like picking up the clues to kind of try and solve these murders that have been happening. Um, is that how much is that built into it in terms of like the story? Is it something where you're asking the player to like find the answer, or is it more just kind of using that to like solve puzzles in the more traditional survival horror style?
So it's really just it's about pulling the player into like a little bit of a journey, and so that's kind of like the meat and potatoes as to why the player is there,
Mm.
Mm.
and they don't, and so the player, the private investigator, he really did not have any idea what he was getting himself into. And so he's showing up to this place and he's trying to investigate. And then once he gets pulled in too deep, he kind of is kind of forced to see things all the way through. And so kind of the investigation side of things is really about pulling the player deeper into the story and getting them really like entrenched into what's going on.
Yeah, and because there's always that reason for people to say, "No, turn back now, run away." But if you've got a job to do, kind of, that's a reason to keep pushing on and keep going.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Um, so yeah, the we've already talked kind of about like obviously the gameplay inspirations through like Outlast and Condemned and Resident Evil as well. Um, is there any kind of anything else in terms of other inspirations for like for either for the story and the setting and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so um the overarching kind of like inspiration for the story was I was really getting into like Lovecraft and like different type of like Lovecraftian stories and kind of just reading a lot of them, and so I was getting really inspired by some of those stories, and um, that kind of battle with like that existential crisis type horror, and including some psychological things, and having that kind of play with a world that's somewhat grounded in reality. So that was kind of like my inspiration for the story. It's a very Lovecraftian cosmic horror type story, and so just that's been my influence when trying to make a survival horror game.
Hmm. Um, and in terms of the like kind of obviously behind the gameplay and stuff, you've got like music and that sort of side makes is kind of what makes a horror game almost. So, what were you going for in terms of that? Are you going for a particular feel to everything with the music and the sound design?
Yeah, my idea and my plans for the music was really kind of the music was kind of going along this ride of like insanity with the player, and so I really wanted to keep a consistent sound that kind of gets distorted or more intense or more horror-esque as the game goes on, and so kind of having that sensation that things are just gradually just getting worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, it's so with the like the sound production things and all the music, have you outsourced that work, or is it all? Have you been working on that yourself?
So I'm not much of a musician.
Hmm.
I've been working with the co-composer of Signalis, Cicada
Oh, okay.
Sirens,
Oh,
and
yes, yeah, yeah.
so yeah, and so we've been having a lot of fun just kind of coming up with ideas, and um, we're still jumping in and kind of trying to work out getting some more tracks and getting a lot more music and getting kind of like that final vision that I was going for. So that's kind of still the plan right now.
Well, you definitely got some talent there anyway, so I'm
Hmm.
sure that side's pretty much well covered.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that is obviously Signalis was a very much in the cosmic horror sort of vein as well. So,
Hmm.
Hmm.
quite similar wavelength as far as that goes. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, so what's been kind of, I suppose, the hardest bit of this, like the biggest challenge in terms of like making this game?
I think just kind of doing it myself and kind of just having to figure things out and kind of like you know, especially when it comes to like having to figure out how to work with other people, specifically like freelancers, and then having to, you know, try to keep track of everything. Like there's so many things to get to, and then you have to also think about marketing the game, and then time starts flying by, and you're just like, oh, I haven't posted anything in like 2 months. Like what's going on? So it's kind of it gets a little hectic, and I've been in full like development on this game for the last couple of months.
Hmm.
Um, so it's been really like just kind of intense, and I've been kind of taking it, pretty intense as well. Kind of just a perpetual crunch right now. Just, but kind of self-induced also. I'm just addicted. I just kind of just plop down and just start getting to it. So has also been a struggle is kind of trying to reduce like that feeling of burnout and stuff like that for sure.
I was gonna say like take time away to eat and not just like carry on developing and coding whilst you're like having your food
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Just having a like having a one place for everything. Like sometimes fall asleep in my chair. So but it's not too bad. I would probably be doing this anyways, right? With like video games. So at
Yeah.
least now I'm kind of making something, and it's kind of been motivating me.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's basically from what you said, like a labor of love. Essentially, like this is something um, a passion project? Because I think you mentioned that at the start as well, saying like this is your kind of the big thing you wanted to work on. So is this like when you first come to making games, this is the game you wanted to make, or is there more kind of behind that as well?
So I always just this is the type of game I've always wanted to make, and um, I I think for me this project is really just setting the foundation also for the dream game that I wanted to make. That's in my well, it's kind of like it's way too out of scope, you know.
Mm.
So it's kind of like I wanted to when kind of I think everyone just has like that game in your head that's gonna take millions of dollars to make, and
Yeah,
so this is kind of like I'm putting all of my love and effort into like Pneumata, and I'm really trying to push towards these games that I want to make. And maybe one day I'll get to that, crazy, insane, like high budget game that I wanted to make. And it's been just a really cool ride. Just I didn't even think I'd get this far, so it's kind of cool that I'm here right now.
yeah. All we were talking obviously before we started recording as well. You mentioned all self-taught. So
Yeah.
is that been something that's kind of come easy to you, or did when you started off was it kind of like staring in confusion at this massive things and go like where the hell do I begin?
Um. Oh yeah. I mean, when I first realized that I could possibly make games was, I think before recording, I was telling you I saw all of these different indie horror games coming out. Um, a lot of them were kind of like Slender clones, and that kind of inspired me. Like, oh, I can just do that. And at the time, I started taking an animation class in high school, and I was learning about 3D modeling and some animation. And so, I just hopped into Unity and just started trying to make games. And then I realized I couldn't code, so I had to put that down. And so, it getting to the point where I can, you know, work on gameplay and doing all of that, I think that's always going to be the biggest hurdle. If you're just feeling like maybe you don't have the brain for like coding or programming, I think that's kind of like the biggest hurdle. You're like, oh, you don't even want to try, because that's not for you. Um, and so I come from like a more artistic background,
Mm.
so I went to university for like 2 years just taking drawing classes, and then I dropped out. Um, but and I was a tattoo artist for a little bit, and so I always just felt like I was more kind of like artistic brained and not just drawing, and so it's really hard to translate that into being able to, you know, make an entire game by yourself. So I think that was the biggest hurdle is getting over that fear of like even wanting to attempt like coding or anything like that. But during the pandemic is really when I really kind of like sat down and really tried to like and focus and start hitting goals and make progress in that area, and so that kind of set the foundation for being able to attempt this project.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's the thing we're seeing now is obviously with the after coming out of COVID now and everyone else, we've seen all these new games and all these new developers coming out that have obviously been born within that COVID era of time. So it's great to see all these like brand new stories that are coming out from
Yeah.
like people like yourself. Um, have you brought many other people on with you to develop the game, or has it just been mainly predominantly you?
It's predominantly just been me, and of course I'm working with like voice actors and the composer,
Mm,
um, and then outsourcing some stuff like story specific props or things like that.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's mainly just been me. Um, and I've worked with like I've had to get some consulting also, because my little brain can't really do it all. You know, so
no,
I
yeah.
sometimes you just have to ask out for help and see if people can help you. But Mostly it's just been just myself actually working on the actual project.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to juggle. Even just like trying to do the development, and if you're doing the socials as well, and like forgetting, oh yeah, I should tweet out something to remind people that I still exist. And
Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that for sure, and just try to market the game somewhat, at least once a day or every other day at least. And but it's definitely hard to juggle, like switching back and forth and being like, oh, I'm working on this, or how can I turn this into like content to post and share? And so I think you have to kind of be a content creator, which is kind of something that's foreign to me also.
yeah, no, well, it's certainly impressive to do because it's hard enough to be a content creator when you're just creating content for its own sake. So when you're creating it
Definitely, yeah.
on
Yeah,
the back of a much bigger, obviously, the game, which is the main thing that you're doing, and then you're creating content out of that. That's basically double the
yeah.
work. So um, kudos, and
I
it's
know,
obviously
definitely.
working.
Oh yeah, I hope so. Yeah, we're getting there, but it's
No,
been fun for sure.
yeah. Next, it's been good really to see like how much the community has been quite excited by the game. From Vincent, have you seen it on that on your end? Have you seen that from like the comments
Yeah,
and stuff? Yeah.
yeah, definitely seen it. Honestly, it does feel weird that anyone wants to play anything that I made.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like also like a big motivator. Also, like you have these people kind of counting on you, and they'll you'll be able to provide them entertainment for however long they play it for. So it's been really like motivating too.
Yeah, um, and obviously you've got the demo at the moment. So what's the reception been like with that and feedback you've been getting?
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Um, it's an early demo that I've put out just to kind of really, hunker down on the gameplay regarding combat and kind of just try to, get all those bugs and all those things figured out. Um, just we have Steam Next Fest coming up in about 2 weeks, I think, something like that. So that's also kind of like just making sure, I'm getting that good feedback, seeing the things that I need to work on. And the sewers is like a really small part of the game, and so I did choose that part of the game specifically just to really um, figure out and find all those bugs and
Hmm.
get everything finished. There's a little wonkiness here and there, but with some time, I can hopefully get all those things figured out.
No, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's always the benefit. Like the biggest playtest you'll ever get is obviously just the public getting their hands on it because even the AAA studios with hundreds of staff, they'll still
Hmm.
be like years later, people are still finding like random bugs and glitches that people had never even expected.
Yeah.
So um,
Yeah, it's tough for sure because there's a million things that can go wrong.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
um, so has there been any like kind of in terms of bugs or glitches or unexpected things that have because it does happen sometimes where they kind of work to the benefit of the game, like where they make it more scary or unsettling for people. Have you had anything like that, or has it all just been stuff that you need to fix?
Um, I think it's mostly just like little stuff here and there, like edge cases, kind of, Um, and so just kind of just figuring out how to put in those fail safes, just to keep things kind of from like breaking and stuff. So that's kind of been like the main focus. Um, and then just beyond that is kind of just in general, just improving the game and just taking people's feedback and really using that to transform the game and just keep making it better.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I mean, the reason I ask is 'cause I'm sure that been instances in the past where there's been like horror games have had like sound glitches, for example, and they've made the game scarier, so they've
Yeah.
left them in and
Oh yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah. Sometimes there'll be like that like intense music just comes in out of nowhere for no reason. So that's been kind of like, it can kind of freak you out a little bit.
Yeah. So it's like on older games, like if a comes in after like you've already killed an enemy, but it thinks it's still coming, and it just like makes you all tense out of like, oh, what now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So obviously we know we've got Steam Fest coming up. Is there anything else that you've got coming up with Pneumata, or is it?
Um, I think now that the game's kind of coming along nicely, and
Hmm.
I'm really looking forward to being able to share more of the game and just really just kind of show off, all the other stuff that I've been working on and everything. Because when I first started Numata, I did want to make a game also that had that like narrative side to it and the story and the dialogues and these things happening. So
Hmm.
there's a lot to the story that hasn't really been shared um, at all, really. So I'm really looking forward to kind of just getting more into that and with Steam Next Fest coming up, updating the demo also to include some more of the stuff that I've been working on and just kind of having like a complete experience ready for Steam Next Fest.
Cool. With plenty of surprises in store for people. Do you think?
Yeah, it should be pretty different and much improved than it was just like yesterday. So pretty exciting.
I know, definitely.
Yeah. We're really looking forward to seeing what comes of that, I think. Um, so have you had a chance to play many other games, or has it just all been purely stuck in the development side of?
Um, well, I think the last couple of games I've played well, just in the last couple of months, I've played Resident Evil 7. I played the new Amnesia game, Bunker,
Hmm.
and yeah, but I think that's like the only games I've really played in the last couple of months. Besides, like I play a lot of Counter-Strike. Um, I've been playing that for like over a decade now, so that's kind of also like my guilty pleasure. When I have some free time, just play some CS. Well, CS2 now, so it's been fun.
Is that the blow off steam, like when you just need to get away from?
Yeah, and I think I just love making first person games. So like every game that I play is just first person or first person shooter. Um, but who knows in the future? Maybe I'll work on a third person game.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, with horror, first person tends to be kind of a lot more claustrophobic in that sort of
Yeah,
sense, because close camera, not um, limited FOV, not knowing what's around the next corner, that type of thing. Whereas um, third person can be a lot more kind of. I mean, not always. We've had Resident Evil 2 remake and stuff like that, but often a lot more action oriented and
Hmm.
like
yeah.
that sort of thing.
Yeah. No, is there any games that you've seen that have come out this year that you would like to play if you ever get the time?
Um, hmm. I don't know about any new games, but there's like a lot of games that I need to get to, like
Hmm.
the Resident Evil remakes and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like super backlogged, and I also just end up playing games that I've already played before.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'll have
Mm.
to I'll have to start picking up some new stuff soon.
No, definitely. No, I find that myself because obviously I'm quite busy with work and stuff, and it's always quite nice, I think, to sit down and experience and play through something you know, and you can play and you know everything all the way through it, rather than having to start a new game. But no, I definitely get that.
And
Yeah,
then
but
just
hopefully,
your backlog staring at you, judging.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I have to get through the backlog, and then, hopefully when the game's done, I can just then just start going wild and maybe start playing some new games.
Yeah. Have you got any in your sights, or is it more just kind of a general idea that just to catch up on what's out there?
I've been kind of just living under a rock. Um, I've been in a cave, just kind of just making the game, so I feel like I'm really just out of the loop. But in the next couple of weeks and months, I'll start trying to get back in the loop here,
Hmm.
um, and see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, obviously we've got the horror game awards coming up, so hopefully that'll provide some inspiration in terms of things that you can pick up and play uh,
Yeah,
from
I'll be tuning in for sure.
this year. So yeah, I mean, what we normally kind of do is ask if people have got any picks, but I think we'll do it the other way around this time. We'll say, if you watch, we'll give you suggestions of things to play.
Yeah, I mean, I've had just a crazy last couple of months, so yeah, I definitely just need to get out from under the rock, and yeah, so it'll be fun. I'm excited for all the stuff coming up next month for sure. Um, I'll be checking out a bunch of the demos also during Steam
Hmm.
Next Fest. I'll
Yeah.
be on that horror tab, kind of just seeing, what's happening and just checking everything out for sure, and just kind of getting in the know. And yeah, by the time the horror game awards come out, and I'll be like an expert on everything indie horror, and I'll start making my own picks.
Cool. So are you, I take it that's the sign then. When once the Pneumata's complete, you'll be taking a breather before you dive into the next project. Give yourself some space.
Um, I think I'll probably like I'll be right back to it, but probably like less pressure to
Hmm.
like finish a project, more about experimentation and just figuring out, you know, what's gonna be fun to work on for multi-year, periods of time, like so that's probably gonna be the next thing. But that might be DLC, that might be a sequel,
Hmm.
that might be a multiplayer mode. Um, I always I was playing with the idea of, just kind of just adding like co-op to Numata, which would be fun. Um, whether that's like a Phasmophobia type thing or like a Call of Duty zombie style game or something. I think there's a lot of possibilities there for sure. To make like a cool experience that you can play with like other people.
Yeah, that'd be cool. There's a lot more multiplayer horror nowadays, certainly, although a lot more of it's kind of PvP rather than the kind of co-op side of things.
Yeah. I think that's what is missing quite a lot is a lot of the co-op where you experience the story together. I think
Yeah.
we definitely need to see more of that. I think
Yeah, especially if you find a way to work it in so one player can get the other killed by accident.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. But a lot of fun possibilities for sure there
Yeah.
for the future of what's next for me at least. Because after this I can work on anything, and really um but I do plan on providing support for Numata for a while and just
Hmm.
kind of updating it, improving it, and um yeah, so extra content for the base game is probably will come for sure.
Yeah. That's cool. Have you got? I can't remember if you had a release date or not. Is there like a timeline for maybe like a time frame where it potentially might be coming out? Or
It's kind of still up in the air a little bit.
Mm,
But for sure, a Q4 release this year it's very possible, very likely. Um, but we'll see. We'll just monitor, and as we get closer, um, just to really make sure that the game that comes out, it's it's ready and it's
yeah,
it's
you want it to be the best, don't you? The best showcase
yeah,
of what you've done.
yeah, definitely. And if that might take some extra time, then it might. But we'll see. It's a fairly big project, especially compared to anything else that I've done before. Um, it's like it's probably like at least 5 hours.
Okay.
And
Mm.
so yeah, just kind of making sure that the whole experience is going to be a good one. I think it's the main focus for me for sure.
Well, the different gameplay aspects that you were talking about earlier is definitely interesting. It'll definitely, I think, over that time frame, it'll make you want to go forward, and
Yeah,
not find itself being stale. So that definitely sounds interesting. We're looking forward to it, definitely.
yeah, thanks.
Cool. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Before
Definitely.
we go, just mention like you can wishlist Pneumata on Steam, and I'm presuming you're encouraging people to like wishlist as much as possible, particularly as we get closer to the finish line.
Oh yeah, definitely, and also on PlayStation also. You can wishlist it on Steam and PlayStation right now.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I keep forgetting wishlist on PlayStation is a thing, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's not as focused on, but it's there.
Yeah. Well, whichever one you're likely to play the game on, then do feel free. There'll be a link to at least the Steam wish list
Mhm.
down below. I don't think we can link to PlayStation Store wish lists, but if we can, we will
yeah,
include that
we'll
in the
try it.
description as well.
Yeah.
Um, so do check it out if you get a chance. And thanks once again, Antonio, for joining us. And thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, thank you so much.
This has been Talking Terror, the official podcast of the Horror Game Awards. Thank you very much for listening. Check out the links in the description for more info on where to follow our guests in order to support them and keep up to date with their work. The Horror Game Awards will be airing live on YouTube on Saturday the 16th of December. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel to avoid missing out on what promises to be a very exciting night of awards and game reveals, as well as future episodes of this podcast and other content. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to see you next time.